Hello, I'm Hilary Hahn, and I am here with...
Sakari Oramo.
Where are we?
We are at the Sacher Hotel in Vienna, which is one of the nicer places to be on earth, I think, if you have to choose.
It's a chandelier.
It's a beautiful room. Yeah, it's the lobby of the hotel. And we've just done 2 concerts together.
And you also did a recording.
Indeed, yes, with the Vienna Philharmonic. This was my first recording with the Vienna Philharmonic, and also our first appearance together.
I should mention that you're a conductor.
I'm a conductor, yes, indeed. I'm normally working with the Royal Stockholm Philharmonic, which is my own orchestra, and also from this summer I'll be working as a chief conductor of the BBC Symphony in London.
How do you think that's different? I mean, a conductor has to do a lot of different jobs. You have basically 2 music directorships then, or directorships, and you do guest appearances. So how do you see those 2 locations being different to work on, and also how does that tie in with all the guest stuff?
Well, I mean, being a chief conductor is like nurturing a child or being married to somebody, whereas the guest appearances are more like individual people that you meet, and it's kind of guest conducting is usually a short-term engagement which has its good and bad sides. I mean, of course, you can enjoy being with an orchestra for the first time. It can be really thrilling and exciting and wonderful. But of course, changing the playing in a few days, it's not really possible. I mean, you go with what you're given, and so it's also very important to choose your visiting orchestra partner as well.
So how do you work with that when you come to an orchestra and you want to hear them do something a certain way? I do a lot of adapting because I don't have a resident orchestra, so I'm always trying to keep an ear out for what I could do to. But I am also playing my own instrument. The orchestra is your instrument as far as the audience is concerned. So there's a different level of needs and expectations.
Certainly there is, and I think one very important thing that a conductor must always remember in rehearsal with an orchestra you don't necessarily know so well is that the orchestra will almost, no exception, want to make their best, want to do their best, and you've just got to kind of have the energy and the right musical authority to harness the powers that are there already in the instrument, so to speak. And I think bossing around is probably not the best way of doing that, no matter what the level is. I think winning the cooperation of the musicians is actually paramount because then you can play on their strengths, and I think I mean, a conductor needs a tremendous amount of psychological eye and of musical authority, and preferably also some charisma, which is something you can't really learn. So I mean, you either have it or you don't have it.
How do you, well, I guess I'm never there when a conductor starts working with an orchestra. I usually come in the second, third rehearsal or something like that. How do you actually start with a new orchestra that you've never worked with before?
Start by saying good morning and playing. And I like to play, I don't know, if possible, even a whole movement of a piece, or let's say at least 10-15 minutes of uninterrupted music making, because in that way, not only the orchestra can sort of get its grips on playing again, they probably had the weekend off or something, but also you can get your grips on them and kind of feel what they feel like. It's a bit like trying a new car, if you allow this rather mundane comparison.
What are you listening for then at first?
I'm listening to sound quality, to balance, to phrasing, articulation, all the things that actually make music sound different. And I'm assessing and trying to make a decision. What should I actually address? What are the things that I would like to change, and what are realistic things? Usually the first thing is balance. Usually
Inside the orchestra.
Inside the orchestra, exactly, yes. I usually try to work somewhat on string sound, which I find is a good means of making an orchestra sound different.
And you have experience with strings, right?
Indeed, I'm a violin player myself, and I used to be concertmaster in the Finnish Radio Symphony, so I can pretty much in detail give technical advice to string players, which they of course usually appreciate, because talking in literary terms is another thing. I mean, you can also describe music like that, But really, if you can give technical advice, clear-cut technical advice, then there's no way that somebody understands it in a different way. It's kind of same for everybody. But I have been told off a few times by orchestra musicians for giving violin lessons in front of a symphony orchestra, which can also happen.
Are you
It can
told
be too
off
much.
in rehearsal, or are you told
Well,
off?
just privately. Yes.
I just imagine everyone's telling everyone off.
Yeah. I mean, it does happen. It does
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
Everyone has a different way of receiving either suggestions or criticism. So I'm sure with that many people that you're talking to, everyone's going to take it differently.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's also part of the job, and that's something you've got to take as it comes. But of course, a conductor has also tremendous advantage if he has social skills, if he can deal with different people, so that so that they feel challenged but not unnecessarily harassed or
Right.
tortured somehow.
So as a chief conductor then, what do you listen to when you go back to your orchestra and you've worked with them on something and then other people have come in and done what you were just describing?
Yeah.
What do you listen for so that there's a continuum in your work with the orchestra?
I can usually tell who's been there before me.
That and you have the calendar.
Yeah. Well, without that even, I can tell it from the playing somehow. And it's interesting because conductors always affect orchestras, even if they don't know it, and even if the players don't know it. It's already the conductor's kind of physical posture, the mental approach. Everything just changes. And the beauty of being a music director with an orchestra is you get to work with them in slightly longer patches, maybe 2 or even 3 weeks at a time, sometimes 4.
I didn't think about that, yeah.
And you can kind of nurture the things that you want to nurture in the orchestra. But of course, that's only one side of a music director's job. You also got to keep an eye on the personnel issues. You've got to keep an eye on players who might have problems for one or another reason. You certainly have to reward and thank the players that are doing extremely well. You have to keep everybody motivated. You have to keep the planning is very important.
The
You see the repertoire is incredibly important because you can ruin a season by doing too much of one thing or too little of one thing or too much similar things or too different things after another. It's all a kind of a fine balance, and of course we get a lot of help from our administrators usually for that, who often are very experienced people, and so it's kind of not our task alone.
But you do have your name associated with the things that happen too, so you want to make sure that
Yeah.
it's not just about you, because no orchestra is just about one person, and no one person can do all of that on stage at one time.
No, that's absolutely right.
But you also are representing yourself in the work that you do, so I imagine that's a difficult balance as well to strike from a personal perspective while working.
It is certainly. I guess it's maybe better even not to think about it.
Yeah.
Just to do your best and
Just make the
to,
music.
to serve the scores you do, and to kind of create an atmosphere where the musicians can give their best. And then you can see where it leads to.
Yeah. Well, sort of more mundane, like how did you get to your point in your career kind of things. So you started as a violinist, and then you were concertmaster, and so first of all, what got you into music, and then what got you into that transition?
Well, I'm from a musical family. From my mother's side, practically everybody plays or played something. Not all of them have become professionals, but I mean my cousins and uncles and God knows who, everybody. So and my father's a musicologist, so I mean I was just like
You're
I
primed.
grew up inside a musical reality, and when I was a little boy, I got to meet Witold Lutosławski, for instance, the great Polish composer. Of course, I had no clue who he was, but I've met him, and other very important people as well. But it's like all of this just created a fascination to performing, and to see my mother perform. She's a great pianist. Always created a kind of stir. I wanted to do the same thing in one way or another, not necessarily as a pianist, but somehow. And I studied the violin. I studied in Finland and I studied in the Netherlands. And then at some point I became concertmaster with the Finnish Radio Symphony. But at the same time I wanted to find out what conducting is really like, and I enrolled to the conductors class in the Sibelius Academy, where the legendary Professor Jorma Panula was teaching.
Is that who's responsible for the Finnish conductors who are
He's a
performing
big,
today?
let's say he's a big player.
Okay.
He's a big player. I mean, he taught Esa-Pekka Salonen, Jukka-Pekka Saraste, Osmo Vänskä.
I've heard his name a lot, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what he had the most, he had the nose for talent.
Oh.
He knew exactly who he should take on into his class. And that was the first part of the secret.
Yes. That can
So
make
he
you
only-
seem like a genius as a teacher.
Yeah.
Because you have so
well,
many
I mean,
good students, but you know who to start with.
Exactly, and he only accepted people who were ready musicians and played an instrument on a high professional level.
I
That's
see.
the first thing. I mean, it was an interesting time. I spent 3 years in the class, and at the same time I played in the orchestra. So I kind of saw what conductors did, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, why you should do, why you shouldn't do it.
And the
And-
personal approach side too, like how you speak with the musicians, because you saw from the inside of the orchestra what got certain reactions.
Absolutely, yeah,
All
yeah,
of
and you
that.
feel yourself inside
Right.
your guts. Now this is wrong. You can't say like that. And
You know when you feel respected, regardless of what the intention was.
absolutely. But I also know that when I'm angry, I actually play my best sometimes. So this is also a kind of, especially in a group situation like an orchestra, if you can create a kind of positive urge, then it's also a very good thing. But yeah, and then at some point I got a chance with my own orchestra. A conductor fell ill. I took over a concert, and boom, I was a conductor. This happened about 20 years ago, so we're now in 2013.
So when that happened, you say, boom, you became a conductor. Is that like because everyone then started inviting you, or
Indeed, yes,
in
that's what
yourself you knew that was what you were going to do?
Also, because before that I was really unsure, and I was actually looking forward to a career as a concertmaster very much. But things turned out differently, exactly because I got a lot of invitations, which of course I couldn't turn down, but I still had in the back of my mind, I had a thought that maybe it's not for real, that one day I'll go back. But of course this doesn't happen to people.
Right.
Once you move somewhere, you are there, and that's it about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I wound up where I am kind of by accident in a way, just because I thought I might wind up in any number of careers. And the first one that just kind of, one thing led to another and just kind of happened was the thing I do now, like traveling around and doing solo work. But it's by no means the one I thought would happen.
exactly, yeah. No, that's
So-
very interesting because it feels like almost predestined.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen like
You're
this
just on this
because
ride.
certain stars are in certain positions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing actually. And then I got a few years later, I got the music director's job in Birmingham with the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, where I actually really learned the profession of a music director the hard way. I was following Simon Rattle, which wasn't very easy because he was very good, and the orchestra had done everything with him already. So I mean, I was trying to find new ways for them to be the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, and I to a certain extent I did, I think. And we worked together for 10 years. I was very happy there. It's a great orchestra. Greetings if anybody's watching. And then I moved on in 2008 to the Royal Stockholm Philharmonic. But before that, I also took over my ex-orchestra where I used to play, Finnish Radio Symphony.
Oh.
So I was with them as a
Was
chief
that weird?
conductor.
I would think that would be weird.
No, I mean, it's an orchestra that always bred its own conductors. Like everybody who was chief conductor up until a certain day had also played in the orchestra. It's kind of a strange Finnish situation. And
It seems supportive then.
very,
Yeah.
very good indeed. And it's a hugely kind of powerful orchestra that can play any music off the page fantastically. And I enjoyed making music with them, and not least bringing them into a new hall in Helsinki, which opened in 2012.
Isn't that so
No,
exciting?
11 actually.
It's just so
2011.
exciting when there's a new hall because everyone in
Yeah.
the community gets
It's a
like
big
anticipating
boost,
that and gets excited. And
yeah, exactly. And especially as what we had before was absolutely lousy.
And acoustics are usually eagerly anticipated as well.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
change, it's possibilities
Absolutely.
that it could
and,
bring.
and all this was a great process. I mean, I set out to prepare the orchestra for that already many years before. So
Was it in the works when you started with them?
not quite,
you
but it
kind
was
of
the
made
process
sure it
was
happened?
going. But then I didn't personally actually make sure of anything. It was a big political decision. But I mean, at the end it happened, and I'm really glad it did. Because
would
it's
think?
been
You know, a concert hall, it's political.
oh
It doesn't seem like it should be. It's just like music. You're in a
yeah,
concert
exactly.
hall.
But
Just enjoy.
in Scandinavia, the culture is supported by the government and the local government, and they were very much players in this, as was the radio broadcasting, the State Radio Broadcasting Corporation as well. So, I mean, having players like this around, it's just politics.
Yeah.
And it was all politics. But now it's not politics. Now it's music, and that's of course very important.
Well, that illustrates the range of the career of a conductor, actually. You go
Indeed.
from politics to, working on the music to exciting things that happen in the
Indeed.
course of the orchestra's career that you happen to be there for. And
Yeah. And then I stayed with Finnish Radio for 10 years. I finished in last year, 2012. And then the newest thing is that I'm going to take over this BBC orchestra in London, BBC Symphony, which is a great thing because I can go back to the UK, which I like very much, and which I'm already kind of familiar with, although London is, of course, a bit different from the other places.
you're familiar with living in England or with working?
Yeah, indeed, and with the whole mentality and, the everyday life and the mentality that is, I think, something that initially, when I started in Birmingham, as quite an inexperienced conductor, and I didn't know Britain that well at that time, only from TV.
A lot of people only know America from TV, and it's
Yeah,
not really a
it's
fair
true.
representation.
No, absolutely not. The same applies for the UK as well, and it was pretty difficult in the beginning, just to understand how everything works and all the things about funding, and this was hard, but it was a great learning curve,
And it's nice that you wound up wanting to work more in the UK.
yeah, absolutely.
After all of that you learned, that you're excited to go back.
Well, I have to confess that in 2008, when I left the Birmingham Orchestra, I thought I'd actually never go back in a permanent position. But boom, there it happened. I mean, just a couple of years later. And then I thought there must be something which actually connects
Right.
the UK musical life and myself.
Right.
And I feel I somehow slot in there very well.
And kind of like it's meant to be, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in fate as a part of our existence.
Well, final question would be, what do you like most about music?
The emotion. The emotion is everything, and obviously there is music that is more emotional than other music, but I think all music creates emotions. Even the driest Stravinsky late period music does. Even if it's, I don't know, even if it's positive or negative or something in between, but music can do so much to us that no other thing can. You can look at a painting, it creates emotions, of course, but it doesn't kind of transport you in the way that music does. Or reading a good book, same thing. It can be very intense experience, but music has it all, kind of. It has the pictures, it has the text, it has the subconscious level, which affects people so deeply. It's great to be a musician, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.